Greetings from Columbia, Maryland, where we are recording Razzle Dazzle Radio, a show brought to you by Howard Community College. I'm Carolyn Kelemen, and I'm here with my co-host, Judy Templeton. Today's show celebrates classical music and concert artists here in the new city. Notice I said the new city because that's what Columbia was called in the very beginning. Let's go back to the beginning. The first professional venue dedicated to concert artists took place in July 1967 at Meriwether Post Pavilion, designed by architect Frank Gehry and promoted by the Rouse Company. What they hadn't counted on was the torrential rain and mud that went on for days and days and messed up the whole Meriwether stage area. So the workers put down tarps for the ballerinas from the New York City Ballet to walk on their toes across the mud and onto the stage. So what a beginning we have, huh? It rained so hard that workers had to lay down tarps so we could walk on our toe shoes from the trailers to the stage. Suki Shore once told me. She was a premier ballerina at that time. Meriwether Post became a welcoming place to perform for Van Cliburn, Judy Garland, Rudolf Nureyev, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Julie Andrews, and Jimmy Buffett, among others. Oh, and the stories we could tell about the beginning of these performers, but we don't have enough time on our show today. It was up to the locals to keep Meriwether Post available, and there's thanks to Francis Dawson, who was a leader in a nonprofit Pavilion in Common and founder of Columbia Pro Cantare in 1977. And there's a story that the late Norman Winkler dressed up like Beethoven to promote concerts about the same time as that Pro Cantare was founded. And there was so many of the old timers who did so much, and all the local professional artists, like we have our guest today, Faye Rosinsky, a cellist who is a professional performer, but she also performs for the community in ways, and she's going to talk about that right now. Greetings, Faye.
Hello.
So what's the life of a cellist like?
Cellists seem to be very social animals. We're always getting together in cello groups, and I think just the fact of playing a cello and having to take it with you wherever you go is very social. You have to understand that if you have professional instrument insurance on an instrument, you cannot leave it unattended in a car. That means that if you're out and about and you have your cello with you getting ready to go to a rehearsal or whatever, you have to take it with you wherever you go. And it invites a lot of social interaction, ranging from, don't you wish you played the piccolo, to, oh, is that a guitar? Oh, that must be a cello. So it opens up a lot of social situations. Aside from that, I play the cello because I absolutely adore the sound and the expressiveness of this instrument. And because as a child, when I was in junior high school, which was in the Philadelphia school system back in the 60s, it was called junior high school. That was the first time I heard a symphony orchestra playing classical music. And I had not been exposed to that in my family's home. And all I could think was, I really want to do that. Anyway, make a long story short, it started out that they needed a double bass. And that was the instrument that they started me on. And then I later moved to the cello. But I began as an orchestral player, and it was an experience that completely awed me at that point. And later moved on to chamber music, small ensemble playing, which is primarily what I do now. I have a quartet called the Gallery Quartet, but I just do, as Carolyn said, I just do a lot of playing in many, many ensembles, trying to promote classical music wherever I can, and especially to promote chamber music.
I know we met at a ballet class at Misako's ballet studio. Actually, the first time I heard you play was there, and now she's getting ready for a concert coming up at the Rouse Theatre. But you won't be playing for that, right? You'll be in the audience.
Correct. And maybe even ushering in a few other things.
Where else can we come, hear, or listen to you? I know you do local events, and I believe it's at a local church sometimes. Is that correct?
That's something different, which I'll get to. We play at retirement communities. We have played at places like the Moncton Manor Mill and Andi Musik Live in Baltimore. And we do a lot of private event playings, like for weddings and things like that. But what I did want to talk about is a chamber music organization of which I'm a board member, which is called Sundays at 3. This is a local organization. We hold concerts on Sundays at 3, about 9 months out of the year. And they're held at Christ Episcopal Church in Oakland Mills. And our concerts feature the local arts community, musicians from the Baltimore Symphony, the faculty of Peabody, the Peabody Conservatory, University of Maryland at College Park, the military bands. I mean, there is a wealth, a huge wealth of musical talent in this area. And that is what we try to feature. Now, our concerts are chamber music concerts. We don't present symphony orchestras. So the concerts might be string quartets or quintets, trios with piano, various combinations, small ensembles. And the concerts are excellent. The quality is superb. And the tickets are low priced. Without a subscription, the ticket is $20. However, all high school students come in free all the time. Children come in free. And we make a particular effort to reach out. That's my job on the board, is called outreach, to reach out to high school students and the music education community in Howard County. So we recognize and award students who are chosen by the band or orchestra teachers at each one of the high schools in Howard County. Each year, we ask the band and orchestra teachers to choose a rising senior who has done outstanding work promoting chamber music in the community, in the school, in whatever form. And we award that student a cash award, a certificate of recognition, a presentation in their school, and also, and this has been popular among the students, a job opportunity, because we hire these students to help us set up the concerts at Christ Episcopal and to clean up after the concerts. It's a paying job. They're paid for each concert that they work at. And if they do all the concerts of the season, there's a bonus. So it's a good deal. But the reason for this is we really want to engage a younger generation in the appreciation of classical music and classical chamber music in particular.
That's an amazing opportunity. I love that. I love outreach anyway, so that's perfect. I mean, great collaboration.
I'd like to talk a little bit also about one or two of our upcoming concerts. The next concert in the series will be on Sunday, February 15th. And the group that's performing is the Embassy Quartet. They do perform at the embassies in Washington, D.C. One of the pieces on their program is literally out of this world, okay? It's the Beethoven Opus 130 string quartet. The late Beethoven quartets are very unusual. I'll just read you a very short quote from Stravinsky. He said of the Beethoven, of this Beethoven late quartet, it is an absolutely contemporary piece of music that will be contemporary forever. That's because it broke all norms of classical music up to that point. The late Beethoven quartets, and this one in particular was written, I think, completed or published the year before he died. It has 6 movements. The convention in string quartets up to that time had been 4 movements. The movements some of them are very unusual. He often starts with a slow introduction, then he'll go into something fast. He'll go into a completely hilarious scherzo. In any case, one of the movements in this quartet is called a cavatina, which means a song, a little song or a simple song. And it's very short. The entire movement, I think, is 7 minutes long. It begins very kind of conventional, and all of a sudden there's a change. It's extremely jarring. And for 7 measures, the first violin in the quartet is trying to attempt to say something in a completely anguished tone. Again, I'll quote from the first violinist of the Brentano quartet, who was a founding member of that quartet. He said, "The first violin is somehow overcome, no longer singing, no longer even able to connect one note to another, voiceless yet desperate to give voice. The line cannot find tears with which to cry. It gropes for language where there is none." And Beethoven himself said of this movement that it cost him tears in the writing. Oh. This particular movement, the cavatina from Opus 130 string quartet, is one of the pieces included on the golden records. The golden records were records that were put on the Voyager space probes launched in, I think, 1977 to go to the outer parts of our solar system and beyond. And Carl Sagan, among others, devised a golden record, sort of like a time capsule, but not for the same purpose, to put on these spacecraft so that if they ever encountered any forms of life, they could find some of the highest points of human culture on this record. It includes music, it includes mathematics, it tries to give a sample of our culture. So truly, that quartet is out of this world, because we don't even know where the Voyagers are now, but they're somewhere outside of our solar system spinning around out there. So I wanted to recommend that concert for February 15th. There's another late Beethoven quartet, Opus 131, which I think is on our series in April.
Mike, you're nodding your head there. Are you familiar with what Faye's speaking about?
Yeah, the late Beethoven is revolutionary, isn't it? He died in 1827. Had he lived even a few years longer, my gosh, he would have taken us into the 20th century, I suppose. But no, there really are like startling shifts and changes in a lot of the late Beethoven. So yeah, that's why I was so happy to hear Faye discuss that. And I love the whole notion of being literally out of this world. And philosophically, that was a fascinating thing as to what to put. You know, it's a time capsule type issue, isn't it? Yeah. What do you put in the cornerstone? What do you put on the spaceship? You know, and the fact that of everything in Beethoven, that's what we'd send out to the rest of the universe.
Great segue into introducing our next guest, Mike Giuliano. And I am absolutely honored to have you on our show, since you also host another podcast here at HCC, and you certainly have had a colorful past in all that you've done in the arts and beyond. So let's talk about you for just a second. So first, I've known you as a music critic when Carolyn was our dance critic for our good old Columbia Flyer. Miss that paper still. So how'd you get started in that?
Well, it is a colorful past, but totally legal. So nothing.
Oh, I should
nothing to raise an eyebrow.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I've been a journalist since I was in my early teens, and for a variety of publications, including Variety, the show business newspaper. But directly to our purpose today, much of that coverage was with, I hate to put it in the past tense, but much of that was with the Baltimore Sun Media Group, and very specifically and very locally, as you just mentioned, Judy, the Columbia Flyer and Howard County Times. And I want to connect a couple dots here. That's the first dot. The second dot is what Faye was saying about community outreach, because that's essentially what a community newspaper was all about. And then very specifically in terms of classical music, our topic for today, how do people become aware of things? And I'm a very mixed mind in terms of so much of social media or the internet landscape, however you want to refer to it. Generally a good thing. So I'm not a Luddite that way. I'm not making that kind of a pitch. But the point I'm making is that because there are so many options and so many avenues and so many outlets and so on for information and opinion, it can sometimes ironically have a splintering effect and kind of hard to get focus or really know what's going on. One of the advantages of the old-fashioned community newspaper, and again, whether in print or online, the fact that you had a central source or one of several central sources where people could get information, reliable information, and there was a bond between the reader and the publication that way. So very, very specifically, when we talk about classical music series, people became aware of them and they could follow them. And, you know, on my own part, you know, doing a lot of writing for the Columbia Flyer and Howard County Times, these organizations that I covered, you know, season after season. And so I got to know them well, certainly, and their administrators, their conductors, and so on. But the readers also had a sense of, you know, a little bit of a nudge, if you will, week by week. Oh, look, you know, you turn the page and, oh, yeah, there's a concert this Sunday somewhere. Things you might have known or sort of known, but it doesn't hurt to have that reminder. And then what I really like so much about what Faye was saying about Sundays at 3, specifically that series, is it was intensely local, you know, Christ Episcopal Church, a lot of Howard County talent involved, but by way of outreach, also performers from the Peabody, from elsewhere in the region, connecting other dots, if you will, bringing people like that to Howard County and opening up people's ears, I guess, essentially. And a through line really is the continuity of series like Sundays at 3. And I've been thinking about some of the other classical music organizations that I've covered over the years. It's not fair to single out a single one, but at the risk of doing so, I would mention, something like Columbia Pro Cantare, because as Carolyn mentioned earlier, it goes back to 1977 and all the years, decades really, with Francis Dawson keeping it going. And Francis and I talked so often. We did so many interviews that it felt like family after a while. Well, what's new in your household kind of conversations and musical households, among other things. And you could sort of track the evolution of a group. It could be a piece that, she had performed many times with them, or she might be trying out something new, but ways in which I was learning too. After all, it's a learning curve for me as well. And then the journalist's task there is to obviously convey the basic information, but also, a certain amount of analysis or a certain amount of explication as to if it's a new piece on the bill, do some research, write about it that way. The journalist then essentially functions as a liaison in this particular case between the classical music organization and its audience or intended audience or hope for audience. And so again, even though, I didn't want to single out a single one, I'll single out a second one as well. When I think about the long history of the Columbia Orchestra and all the years that Jason Love was leading it, that's again where audiences get to know the organization and they get to know the music director very well. And it is a kind of family that way. And so it pleased me no end that organizations like this and certainly candlelight concerts, things like that, just kept going year after year. It's essential fabric, cultural fabric in Howard County. Beyond that, if we can segue from classical music to musical theater, you think about like Toby's Dinner Theater, where, Toby, bless her, all the years that she has overseen that and kept that going. That's really at the heart of what it means culturally to be in Columbia. Those are the standbys. And when Carolyn mentioned Meriwether Post at the outset of today's program, it really does go back to 1967 from when the pavilion opened. And even though the original intentions, as a classical music outlet for the National Symphony Orchestra, the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, the sense that you would have that idealism, that you could bring a symphony orchestra to Columbia. And even if the pavilion itself pretty much does other things in more recent years, still the fact that as a musical venue, it's priceless and just part of that fabric that I find fascinating. It's what really holds the community together.
So through your whole path of how this is all connected too, so tell us how you got to the college.
I have Valerie Lash to thank for that because she's a dear friend, and she initially hired me as an adjunct faculty member. For quite a while now, I've been a full professor teaching film, and then doubling back on what you mentioned earlier about podcasts. My colleague there, Marie Westhaver, and I, we have a film-related podcast at the college where we talk about movies. And so it's kind of like sweet for me today. I can sort of lean back a little bit and just be a guest. But whereas, when Marie and I are hosting, I have no trouble talking nonstop, but that's where she and I do talk nonstop for the entire podcast. So this is kind of a sweet relief in some ways to listen to other people for change, other voices. And so, for me, there's a kind of continuity that way as well, because so many of the students I've had, whether young right out of high school students or senior citizens auditing, these are primarily Howard County residents. And so we have all sorts of connections that we either had made before or that we make through the college. And of course, also to do some promotional work for the college, if you will, the fact that, we have the Horowitz Center, which is such a blessing there by way of venues, whether you talk the Smith Theater, Montebello Hall, and so on. And there's so much musical activity that takes place there. Some of it's generated from within the college, our own music department, which is terrific. And so that's another hub. And I oftentimes, when I'm on campus, honestly, just on days where I'm teaching, all I can think about is to walk quickly from my office to a classroom. I still go through that Horowitz Center lobby and something else is going on. And how often I'm you know that feeling, Judy, don't you? I'm so often the eager eavesdropper.
I get to take my students there all the time. So yes.
Gee, what's this event? What's that one? And how often I realize that this is what, as a magnet, this is what brings people from the larger community to the campus and opens up everything. Because while you're there, maybe you've gone to see a concert concert, but there's an art gallery right next to it. And you have these other things that take place. And I just love to eavesdrop on conversations there, because these are things that bind a community together. And again, we're talking online, so I won't say anything against online communication, but there's nothing quite like standing next to somebody in a crowded theater lobby and having a face-to-face conversation that way. And that's one of the great things, isn't it? You know what I'm getting at? And that's one of the great things about the concerts we could talk about. It can be exciting inside the concert hall, but equally invigorating, during intermission out in the lobby as you talk to your friends and neighbors and what you like and what you don't like and this and that. But that's how you learn things. That's how you really get to know people. And
to go back to your point of community, I love in your career that you have been always connected to community and then find yourself at Howard Community College. And of course, I'm thrilled to be there too, because I think we're right in the mecca of the arts. And Monte Ibarro Hall, if you haven't ever been there, you must go there for a concert, because I just love the way it's equipped, especially it's just a beautiful thing. So,
well, when Valerie Lash was the dean there, she really had so much to do, obviously, with designing the whole building and specifically with that hall acoustically. Well, in terms of the size of it and the configuration and acoustically, it's really ideal for chamber music, obviously, but for more intimate settings. I mean, and I love just walking in there visually, just to see the piano on stage. It's a visual fix that way as well. So we've done a lot of film programs in there over the years. And the only inconvenience is we have to push the piano back and drop the screen down.
And be careful when you do it. I've had that.
I know. Believe me, we've been cautioned on that. I know. But again, for our audience listening now, if you're not familiar, as Judy says, with Monte Ibarro Hall, it's really an ideal site. So, and again, promoting the college a bit, we have so much in-house talent there, both faculty and students, and throughout the year, all sorts of events taking place in Monte Ibarro with our home team, if you will. And a lot of those are, either free or, very low cost. So that's not an obstacle at all.
And Mike, let me segue, since you just gave me the perfect segue, because I want to make sure and promote Irish Night on February 7th at Howard Community College. Now, it's not in the Monte Ibarro Hall. It's actually in Smith Theater. Believe it or not, it's the 48th evening of Irish music and poetry at 7:30. So, wow, make sure you get there. Now, we're a little unclear about the featured guest and author's name, but we think it's Carolyn Hughes. Mike said we should call her Ms. Hughes just to be safe, but she's quite remarkable. She's an Irish embassy representative. There'll also be a book signing with her. It promises to be an amazing night, so make sure and get your tickets for that now. And so we're running out of time. So, Faye, do you have some parting words you want to say or promos you want to do? I'm really impressed with the Sundays at 3. Maybe you could just give us some information on how some high school students could get involved, too.
Well, the best way to get involved is to come to the concerts, and that's free. There's no charge at all. They don't have to be accompanied by an adult or anything like that. Just come. And also that job opportunity, the paying job for setting up and cleaning up, is not limited to the awardees. It's open to all rising senior high school students. It's just that the students who have been recognized for their contributions to chamber music, they get first dibs. I think we choose, students from every school, and that opportunity is open to any rising senior. In other words, currently a junior in high school.
Wonderful. And Mike, last thing, real quickly, Carolyn wants me to make sure and ask you about the Oscars coming up. Tell us who you think might win for Best Actor and or Best Actress.
Well, let me pivot on that and talk about the films themselves, because I think the front runner for Best Picture is probably one battle after another. And also on more of the art house circuit, Sentimental Value. Those are films from the fall that certainly will get Academy Award nominations that way. Pivoting from that to films and actors, if you will, from films that came out at the tail end of the year that have been released more locally in recent weeks and definitely will get Academy Award consideration. Marty Supreme with Timothée Chalamet, an amazing young actor. I mean, I'm just blown away by not just his talent, but his versatility. I had mixed feelings about Marty Supreme, but as a performance, it's absolutely terrific. So that's a case where both film and actor will certainly get nominated. But I'd also want to, at the level of acting, I want to put in a pitch for an underdog entry, which would be the Blue Moon. This is Ethan Hawke is the most improbable casting to play Lawrence Hart, the lyricist, as in Rodgers and Hart. Because Lawrence Hart was really short and Ethan Hawke is really tall. And in terms of not just physique, but personality, you couldn't imagine people more different. But he makes it work. He actually looks short on screen, however they do that. He's seated for much of it. That helps. But Blue Moon is a very self-contained picture, very much about Lawrence Hart basically has been dumped by Richard Rodgers, who now has Oscar Hammerstein as his partner. It's opening night for Oklahoma and the cast party at Sardi's. It's if you love theater, you got to see this thing. Richard Linklater's the director. It's very much a chamber piece. It all takes place in the bar, if you will, and a few other rooms. But it's exceptionally well written and acted, right down the line, well acted. And really insightful in terms of creative talent and what can happen when things change. In the case of Lawrence Hart, alcoholism and other problems, taking musical theater on Broadway in a new direction. You showbiz kids absolutely have to see this. I think you'll appreciate so much of the detail in it.
Okay, I'm going to put my money on that one, Mike. Mike, thank you for everything and all your great contributions to the arts and community. We so love you here, and I will probably see you at the Irish Night. And Faye, I'm amazed by what you're still doing, and thank you so much for keeping everything going as well. So to Mike's point, I hope I see you in line or out in the lobby at the theater, because that connection is just as important, and we've got to keep it going. So until next time, razzle dazzle them with Carolyn Kelemen, Judy Templeton. See you at Irish Night.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed what you just heard, we have a whole universe of podcasts waiting for you. Simply search Dragon Podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. You can also explore our full lineup and discover new shows at podbean.com/dragonpodcasts. That's podbean.com/dragonpodcasts.